Welcome to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, in our studios here at Banama. And today I have with me in the studios three extremely affable and knowledgeable gentlemen to speak to us about Islam beyond media-driven narratives, Muslims and non-Muslims in search for common ground, which was also actually the topic of a discourse held just yesterday at University Technology Malaysia in KL. All right, so first of all, I would love to welcome to the studio Dato Ghazali Mohamed Yusuf, and welcome to the studio, Dato.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Our pleasure to have you with us in the studio.
Yes.
All right. So basically, the discourse that was held yesterday at UTM is something that's extremely timely.
Yes.
And it was brought into KL and Malaysia under the auspices of the Yayasan Raja Zarid Sofia Negeri Johor.
Yes.
Which you are the CEO of.
Exactly.
All
Yes.
right. So now, would you like to tell us and the audience a little bit more about what exactly is it that the foundation does?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Firstly, blessings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for getting me involved in this very important mission and opportunity to serve the Almighty. It is something that I think we all Muslims aspire to, particularly at this juncture of the current situation vis-a-vis Islam and the world.
That's right.
And this center, or rather this yayasan, and what we are trying to promote, couldn't have happened at a more opportune time. The yayasan actually was an evolutionary, what shall we say, happening.
Right.
Although we were only officially formed in 2012, when the present Sultan of Johor, Duli Yang Maha Mulia Sultan Ibrahim, and his consort Duli Yang Maha Mulia Raja Zarid Sofia agreed that the University of Technology Malaysia initiate this program to promote the teachings of Islam and its impact internationally vis-a-vis the true message of the Quran.
Right. Okay.
And what Islam is really about. Not sort of negative things that the world is being subjected to at the moment, if I may use the words.
Yes, the current skewed media perception.
Yes, right, exactly. But it did not happen just like that.
No,
it all began with a relationship that began with the Lehigh University in Bethlehem, in Pennsylvania, United States of America, when in 1996.
All right, all the way back in 96. Okay.
When my chairman, Chairman Yayasan, yang berbagi Dr. Rizwan Saleh, was made the chairman for the Council of Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat at Lehigh.
All right, okay.
This was an initiative taken by our then Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad.
That's right.
When he had this concept of the Petronas Twin Towers.
I see. So
the relationship began there, and of course there was a lot of discussions, and the relationship between Lehigh and University of Technology of Malaysia began to deepen.
Right, so that's where it started.
That's right.
Okay.
Then in 2001,
okay, all the way
because the Twin Towers is a Petronas Twin Tower,
yes,
they promoted Malaysian scholars to come and study at Lehigh.
I see. All right. So there was cross-cultural exchange.
Exactly. So when that happened, obviously, the University Technology of Malaysia and Lehigh said, hey, let us do something much more meaningful. Not only for UTM, but also for other universities.
Right.
So UITM got into the picture, and certainly, of course, University Technology Petronas and other universities.
Right.
So that began the relationship, and of course, we must never forget the role played by the Al-Bukhari Foundation. They gave the initial 50,000 for the students to study there, and the Mellon Foundation also gave a grant towards the promotion of this relationship. Then we suddenly realized, because Lehigh University had a very active Global Islamic Studies Center.
That's right.
So why don't we channel our efforts as well in this direction?
Right.
So that Islam can be viewed in a very holistic, progressive,
And an unbiased manner.
An unbiased manner
Right.
with technology as its driving force.
Right.
If you read the Quran, it's about seeking knowledge
Absolutely.
and improving humanity and civilization. So, we discussed this with Duli Yang Maha Mulia,
Okay.
Raja Zari Sofia, and with the consent of the Sultan, Duli Yang Maha Mulia, Sultan of Johor, her husband. Why not? We name this the Yayasan Raja Zari Sofia to promote Islam
Right.
and what it entails in the right way. Because Islam is actually a very holistic and a very progressive religion that looks at faith in a very comprehensive and all aspect of life and civilization and the goodness of life, the goodness of what God has given us in a very positive way.
That's right.
That's number one. Number two, Islam must promote harmony, understanding between religions. There must be an element of interfaith confidence and
Exactly.
promotion.
That's true.
Thirdly, it must be knowledge seeking, and knowledge must be shared, not to be confined within its narrow limits.
Absolutely. What uses knowledge
That's
without
right.
sharing?
So that is why
Okay.
when we had this seminar yesterday, a
Yes.
lot of effort was put in this direction
That's true.
because we wanted to give the true message of Islam.
Yes.
And Alhamdulillah, I think we have succeeded, but this is just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
We have
All
a
right.
lot more, what shall we say, forums and discussion groups to come,
Oh, yes.
inshallah. So this is one of the objectives of this yayasan,
Right.
to promote Islam through forums, discussions and seminars, and also to promote scholarship amongst people who are interested to study in Lehigh or anywhere else in the world, not only to Malaysians, but also to other people who wants to come to study in Malaysia and be attached to University of Technology in Malaysia, etc., etc.
That's right. What better than an international community
Exactly.
learning about Islam?
So you can see from the tall buildings.
Yes.
So
we've come.
every time I look at the Petronas Twin Tower, I say, my God,
What are you reminded of?
the aspiration of Islam is within that building. And I
There you
thank
go.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for putting me somewhere rather in the scheme of things of that building.
That's
so,
right.
as a person, I love those twin towers because it shows the aspiration of Islam.
There you go. All
There you
right.
are, you see?
I think it's wonderfully put.
That's right. That's
very
right.
succinctly
I
put.
wanted to say that because it comes straight from my heart.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
yes,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, Dr. Ghazali, now tell us. So, of course, this center was established under the auspices of the Sultana Raja Zarit Sofia.
Yes.
Now, what were the challenges, however, in setting up the center?
Oh my gosh.
It's not easy
Not
starting
easy.
any new initiative, especially one to do with
Yes.
disseminating the proper sort of
Yes.
information.
Firstly,
about
it's the
religion.
concept. It's
Right.
the concept. And to do it in the United States of America. Oh my God.
There you go. Yes.
Why there? Why not here?
True.
But our
But-
response to that is, let's do it there.
Right.
Because that is where the media somehow or rather has never managed to give us the proper picture.
Right.
Let's get on where it
Let's
really
get to the
matters.
heart of the problem.
The heart of the problem.
Right. Okay.
And no better place than the United States of America. And
Exactly.
we are very fortunate indeed.
To change
have-
opinions as well
yes,
as to.
Yes, very fortunate to have Lehigh because they were
Yes.
involved in this Global Islamic Studies Center for a long time.
Exactly.
We are of the same mind and same spirit and same heart.
True enough.
And of course, they are technological university,
Yes, that's right.
entrepreneurial university,
Research based.
research-based, etc., etc. This is the right time to do it with the right people
Right.
and with the right philosophy and the feelings. Let's get on with it. That's why I consider myself very lucky to be involved in this process.
Yes, these are
Yeah.
exciting times indeed.
Yes,
Because even
yes,
though I
yeah.
would say there's a lot of negativity out there in the media, there is a chance to
Of course.
absolutely dispel all these
That's-
myths.
And I'm a corporate man, you know.
Indeed.
I'm not.
Yes, why not?
I'm
Let's
not
just
an
tell our viewers a
academic,
little
I'm
bit
not
about
a
your
theologian,
background.
etc. I'm a corporate man because Islam
Right.
spread to this part of the world through
Yes.
entrepreneurship.
So
the traders brought Islam
traders
here.
brought them to our shores.
Yes.
Yes.
And this area that we are in, Nusantara,
Yes.
my God.
I like
It's-
that term, Nusantara.
It's a mercantilist region.
True.
And what better way to spread the true message of Islam than to promote the spirit of entrepreneurship and inculcate the values of Islam within that entrepreneurial drive
Spirit,
that we have
right.
and spirit.
That's true. And also, I think what's really important now is
Yes.
that the Nusantara face of Islam is able to reach the world.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
Because
right.
the Prophet, peace be upon him, was a trader.
Absolutely.
My gosh. But look what he did.
Look what he did and look where we are today. All
That's right. So that's it. That's
Okay.
the point. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us here today, Dr.
Oh,
Ghazali.
thank you so much. I enjoyed it. And
All
I must
right.
thank you all for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. It's been our pleasure. All
you.
right. So we'll cut to the commercial, and when we're back, we will actually be speaking to one of our professor representatives from Lehigh University in US. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Isu semasa dan terkini industri kreatif tanah air. Perkembangan muzik tempatan. Lensa anak seni. Aksi layar perak. Tanpa gosip dan sensasi, semuanya disisipkan selama setengah jam dalam Telesini Bukan Sekadar Hiburan. Setiap Sabtu, jam 12.30 tengah hari, hanya di Bernama TV.
Kavita, Meling, dah set ke belum?
Sikit je lagi, Puan.
Apa menu kita hari ni?
Semua menu sihat. Ikan bakar, sup ayam, sayur-sayuran. Banyaklah.
Puan, banyaknya guna minyak. Bahayakan kesihatan lah.
Betul lah macam ni. Saya dah kurangkan separuh dari biasa ni.
Cuba rasa ni. Sedap tak?
Biar kurang masin, jangan lebih.
Betul tu. Kita kena kurangkan minyak, gula.
Garam dan santan dalam masakan. Barulah ramai pelanggan datang ke kedai kita. Semuanya sihat belaka.
Menyelami realiti, menjejaki masa, meninjau peristiwa, paparan kronikal kembara kehidupan, pelbagai keunikan juga pengalaman menarik. Segalanya disorotkan selama setengah jam dalam channel Bernama setiap Ahad jam 9.30 malam hanya di Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, in our studios here at Banama. And now, second up for the day, we have with us in the studio a very special guest from Lehigh University. We have Michael Raposa, who is professor and chair at the Department of Religion Studies at Lehigh. Welcome to the studios, Michael.
Thank you very much. Pleasure
All
to be
right.
here.
Our pleasure to have you here. All right. So tell us a little bit about Lehigh University itself and your background in teaching over there, just to get us rolling.
Sure. Lehigh University is located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania,
All right.
which is a beautiful but small city, but we're blessed with a wonderful location, about 75 miles from New York City,
Right.
50 miles from Philadelphia, so a very easy place for Malaysians to come.
Oh, yes, very
and
strategic
visit.
indeed.
Very strategically located.
All right.
It's a university of about 5,000 undergraduate students and 2,000 graduate students, College
Right.
of Business, College of Education, College of Engineering, and of course the Religion Studies department, my department,
Yes, your department.
is located in the College of Arts and Sciences, which is the largest
Right.
college of the four. This is our 150th birthday.
Right, this year, 2015.
Yes, the university was founded in 1865.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So
and
we-
happy birthday. You're looking
thank you very
fantastic
much.
for 150.
We're having celebrations all year long.
All right.
And it would be wonderful to inaugurate the Sophia Center as part of this birthday celebration.
Right.
So we're very excited about that. I've been at Lehigh, it scares me to say this out loud, for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm
That's
presently
fantastic.
chair of the department for the third time,
Right.
and very excited about this initiative.
Okay, all right. And do you also teach at Lehigh currently?
Yes, I'm a member of the Faculty of Religion Studies.
Right.
My expertise, I am not a specialist in Islamic studies, but as chair of the department, it's been a great pleasure for me to assist my colleagues who work in that area to build this
Right.
program. I teach courses in the philosophy of religion, contemporary Christian thought, Roman Catholicism.
Right.
Also teach a course on science, technology, and religion.
Okay, fantastic. Now, how did Lehigh University and the Yayasan Raja Zaid Sofia come to actually establish the Center for Global Islamic Studies at Lehigh's campus?
The Sophia Center is something that we hope will soon be established.
Right.
But the friendship between Malaysians and Lehigh University goes way back.
As Dato Ghazali was giving us a little
yes,
insight.
It's even older than my time at Lehigh.
Right.
So shortly after I arrived at Lehigh, I learned that faculty in our engineering program had been working with Malaysians, part of the Tall Buildings Council.
I see, all right.
Dato Rizwan, who I had the great pleasure to meet for the first time this week, was working with some of our scholars to build buildings in Malaysia.
Right.
I discovered as a then young chair of the department that the Malaysians wanted to give us a gift for Islamic studies.
I see.
And that generous gift allowed us to teach courses for many years at Lehigh. It was not yet a center. That was established in 2009 with a gift from the Mellon Foundation.
Right.
When my colleague Rob Rosenall arrived, conceived of it, and then raised the funds for it. So in the 80s we had courses. In the 90s that was all supplemented by generosity from Malaysian friends.
Right.
Early in the new century, Rob arrived and conceived the center, and now we're talking about taking this to a whole
new level.
New level.
Right, right. Okay. Now, for a university located in the heart of America, really, why the need, would you say, to actually start focusing on Islamic studies as part of the religious studies department?
This is a wonderful question with multiple answers.
Absolutely. Let's start with the one that you're most comfortable with.
We do have Muslim students. They're in the minority at Lehigh. Some international students who are Muslim, and some American Muslims. And I think this program is important for them. I know that Rob has been a mentor to some outstanding Muslim students who have gone on to do doctoral work in Islamic studies. For them, I think this program allows them to, if I'm a young 18-year-old Muslim from Cleveland, Ohio,
yes, for example,
this program teaches them not only about the history of their tradition, but about how globally widespread it is, about what Islam in Africa or Southeast Asia or South Asia or Europe is like. So it's a wonderfully enriching experience, I think, for the small number of Muslim students we have.
Right.
But the vast majority of students taking these courses are not Muslim.
Wow, that's a very interesting fact, I think. I mean, especially let's say in a predominantly Islamic country like Malaysia, people might be surprised to learn of that.
Yes. I would say more than 90% of the students taking these courses will not be Muslims.
Right, more than 90%.
It's also especially important for them.
Right.
Especially, at the point in history that we find ourselves in now. I think that our students tend to understand very little about Islam, and that what they know about Islam is mediated through television.
Oh yes, of course. The media is narrative.
And this can be valuable to some extent, but it has limits. I was telling the story yesterday. It might be useful.
Oh yes, please.
To tell again, and it allows my daughter Rosemary to get on Malaysian television.
Okay, fantastic.
So make sure we tell her. One of my 3 children, Rosemary, graduated from Lehigh in 2013.
Right.
She only took one course in our department. She avoided us for the most part. But that was a course in Islamic studies.
All right.
Taught by my colleague, Herm Hussain, a brilliant young scholar from Pakistan, who, along with Rob, teaches the courses in our department in Islamic studies. When she began that course, she knew nothing about Islam. We're Roman Catholic.
Okay.
She knew nothing about Islam. And I was amazed after 4 months in that class how literate she was.
Right.
Recently, with the tragedy in Paris,
yes, Charlie Hebdo.
Yes, I received my daughter communicates to me often by sending me blogs and links.
All right, little blog links.
And it was fascinating. She was being barraged with the same media stories that we all were seeing.
Absolutely.
But I get one blog that is talking about how difficult it is to be a Muslim in France. Another one that underscores the role that the young Muslim men played in protecting some people who were being terrorized.
That's right.
A story about the Muslim policeman protecting those journalists who was killed. And it occurred to me that she was seeing these things. She was looking at the media reports in a nuanced and sophisticated way because of her experience in that course.
With different eyes.
Yes. I think our job is to teach students to be critical readers of media.
Oh, absolutely. So to see something critically, absolutely. I think especially being exposed to different religions,
Absolutely.
Islam in today's culture.
And in our department, we are thoroughly cross-cultural, so we teach courses of Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. We now have centers for both Jewish studies and Islamic studies at Lehigh. And
wonderful. That's
it's
a
very exciting.
fantastic and
Yes.
I think a very, very unique aspect of Lehigh's religious studies.
If it's not utterly unique, which I'd like to pretend it is, but if it's not utterly unique, it's very, very rare.
Right.
And the people directing these programs, my young colleagues are very talented, so I think it's a very special time for Lehigh.
Absolutely. So I think what you're offering your students is something that is so balanced and broad-based that they're really going to be ready to be citizens of the future.
We hope so.
We hope so too.
And the Malaysian, the role that Malaysians have played, their friendship, it's a wonderful story to tell. Whether it's helped, cooperating to build tall buildings or cooperating to make global Islamic studies at Lehigh something truly remarkable and unique. Without the Malaysians, we could not have done this.
That's right, absolutely. So tell us about a little bit more about the need in today's world and climate to actually understand and interpret Islam outside of media-driven narratives. Basically sort of give us in a nutshell the gist of what yesterday's discourse at UTM was about.
Yeah, again, the phrase that I keep coming back to it because it popped up in my mind during that discussion yesterday was, in the humanities, we want our students to be critical readers. When they're confronted with a text, we want them to place it in the appropriate context, compare it with other texts of a similar kind or a very different kind, and have their attention directed to the nuances that will allow them to give the most balanced and comprehensive interpretation. With media, this is very difficult. With a text, I can open it, close it, then open it again.
Right.
We will be bombarded by the media willy-nilly. We have no choice.
True.
Our 20-year-old students will spend most of their waking lives with their attention being captured.
Oh yes, by YouTube videos or things that they see online, things they stumble across.
So I think that if you want the nutshell, the skill that we want students most to develop is a skill at directing their attention appropriately. Because others will try to control our attention for political or economic purposes. And if we are disciplined enough to direct our attention to what we recognize really matters, then that's a skill for life that as a teacher, I'll be quite happy if I can help students to develop that skill.
Yes, true. So now tell me, just to give the viewers a perspective, typically what sort of coursework outside of textbook would students do in a religion class? Let's say one that is an introduction to Islam.
Yeah, I should point out that, and my colleague Rob, since he created it, will talk much more about the center.
Yes.
But although the study of religion is central to what we do, and two colleagues in my department teach about the religion of Islam, the Center for Global Islamic Studies is not actually placed in my department. We have colleagues in anthropology, in political science, in the history of art and architecture, who are all teaching courses relevant to the center.
Right.
So that students have the opportunity to learn not only about the religion of Islam, but about its impact on politics, on science historically, on architecture. Being here in Malaysia, I think would be an exciting experience for our students to see firsthand.
Oh yes, absolutely.
What this means. So religion is obviously important to what the center does, but it's really Islamic civilization.
Islamic civilization, yes. Right. So let's say, for example, if I was a student in an introduction to Islam class and I was doing Islamic civilization, what sort of coursework might a lecturer recommend outside of just textbooks? to enable me to start thinking critically, which is what you say is the most important component.
Yes, I mean, in addition to books about Islam and Islamic primary texts, I think courses about traditions related to Islam. And methodologically, I mean, in our department, we are not only cross-cultural, but interdisciplinary. So what resources does philosophy bring to bear in understanding Islam? What resources does a sociologist bring to bear? An anthropologist who does ethnographic work. I mean, I'm a philosopher and a text scholar, but many of my colleagues are more interested in having students talk to people who are religious and engage in conversation and dialogue with them. Ethnographic work rather than textual study proper.
Get to the grassroots, basically.
Exactly. So I think the multidisciplinary approach is very important. It's not simply theological, but philosophical, sociological, historical, anthropological. So it's a tall order.
A tall order indeed, but I think it's fantastic that you offer anyone who's a student at Lehigh the opportunity to do that in your department.
It's very exciting.
Okay. All right. So it's been a pleasure having you on with us.
Well, thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll actually cut to the commercial, and when we're back, we will be coming back with our third and last guest for the day, another extremely affable and knowledgeable professor from Lehigh University, to talk in deeper detail about the media-driven narratives against Islam and what we as Muslims as well as non-Muslims can do about it. So stay with us.
Apa kabar pemirsa? Salam dari Jakarta. Sebuah program kerjasama Kantor Berita Indonesia Antara dengan Kantor Berita Malaysia bernama kembali hadir menjumpai Anda.
Sedar tak kita tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, keadaan iklim yang tak menentu sekarang ni. Perubahan iklim meningkatkan kejadian kemarau, derebu, banjir dan ia menyumbang kepada perubahan iklim yang berlaku secara drastik. Inilah dia faktor-faktornya. Yang pertama, asap dari kenderaan. Yang kedua, penebangan dan pembakaran hutan. Yang ketiga, pembebasan asap dari industri perkilangan. Dan yang keempat, pelupusan sisa buangan. Ini usaha yang Pak Abu buat, iaitu yang pertama, menanam pokok. Yang kedua, mengurangkan atau tidak menggunakan beg plastik. Yang ketiga, mengasingkan bahan buangan. Yang keempat, mengitar semula bahan buangan. Dan yang kelima, memilih barangan dari bahan kita semula. Ada banyak lagi usaha yang boleh kita lakukan. Antaranya, kurangkan pemanduan kereta persendirian dan banyakkan penggunaan kenderaan awam.
Anda adalah sebahagian daripada penyelesaiannya.
Menongkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, and in our studios here today we have with us our last and I would say very knowledgeable guest, Robert Rosenall, Associate Professor and Director of the Center for Global Islamic Studies, or the CGIS, at Lehigh University. All right, welcome to studios, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having all of us today.
No, absolutely. It's our pleasure. All right. So I was actually there at the discourse yesterday, and I found it extremely informative. So before we get started and dig deeper, tell us a little bit about your own education as well as your teaching background.
Sure. I grew up in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, a place that's still near and dear to my heart in the middle of America. Pretty typical American childhood, I would say. My first experience in Asia and my first experience to Islam actually came as an undergraduate student. I was part of a study abroad program. We spent 9 months in 10 Asian countries, and one of those
10
countries...
Asian countries, all
That's
right.
I'd studied Buddhism, was particularly interested in Japanese and Japanese Buddhism.
Right.
But we arrived in Malaysia during the first Gulf War. It's a sad truth that we now have to number them. This was late 1990, early 1991.
All right.
And we had a sort of an impromptu course put together on Islam and the politics of Islam during the Gulf War, and brought in a number of scholars, including Dr. Chandra Muzaffar, who
yes, that's right, a local stalwart, I would say.
That's right, and that experience, I think, for the first time, sort of shined a light on my own ignorance about Islam and the Muslim world and the complexities of the U.S. engagement with the Muslim world. And I eventually made my way to graduate school at Duke University, where I completed a PhD degree in Islamic studies. My own work, in the end, is focused very much on South Asia.
South Asia.
That's right.
So moving from the Shinto specialty all the way to Islam in Malaysia.
Well, South meaning India and Pakistan.
India and Pakistan
That's right.
included.
So I've spent about 4 years living in Pakistan and doing a lot of traveling in North India.
I see.
And along the way, spent some time as well in Malaysia and connecting to broader currents of Islamic knowledge and history in broader Southeast Asia.
Right.
But one of the good things about being a graduate student and a professor is the ability to travel.
Right.
The concept of travel, the experience of travel, the knowledge that's gained through travel, of course, is crucial to the Muslim experience. It's been crucial to my own educational experience as well.
Right. Okay. And currently you're attached with Lehigh University, and at Lehigh you are the director for the Center for Global Islamic Studies.
That's right.
So
I've been at Lehigh since 2003. I finished my PhD and packed my bags and started teaching right away, and have happily been there for 12 years now. I'm dating myself. I'm growing old. More gray hair every day. But the Center for Global Islamic Studies has really been an idea that a number of us on campus and with friends, including Muslim friends in the community, have been talking about for over a decade.
Over a decade.
Over a decade. And drawing on a lot of different voices, a lot of different ideas about ways that we could impact the campus of Lehigh and maybe educational programs beyond the campus with a new kind of model for education about Islam, Muslims, and the broader Muslim world.
Right.
That became a concrete reality in 2009, where we received $1.4 million from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, who saw our proposal, was impressed with the ideas, I think, and gave us a real lift. So for the last 5 years, I've been the inaugural director of this center, and that money allowed us during those 5 years to bring about a dozen scholars to campus, visiting scholars, teaching a whole wide range of courses, everything from Arabic language and literature to Iranian history and film to art and architecture courses. What we're trying to do is think about Islamic civilization and Islamic cultures from a broad historical perspective.
Right.
That funding has now ended, so we're in conversation with Malaysian friends thinking about how to move to a new phase in cooperation and collaboration.
Exactly, and the discourse yesterday was what we all hope is the baby steps of
Inshallah.
Many more to come.
That's the plan. I mean, and again, I think Michael told you, but just to emphasize the fact, what is so hopeful and so promising about this collaboration is that we're not inventing the wheel. There's a long, deep history here of interpersonal connections through the university. We're building on a very firm foundation. We're doing something new, maybe even something radical. I hope
something
it's radical.
groundbreaking. I hope so too.
I think we can say that, but I think it's the collaboration, the shared vision with our Malaysian friends, and the real possibility of exchanges. I mean, if this is going to succeed long term in cooperation and collaboration, we're going to need a bridge that moves in both directions. And we're envisioning faculty exchanges, student exchanges, study abroad programs, collaborative research.
Right.
Much work remains to be done, but there are really tantalizing possibilities.
Absolutely. I mean, one can never underestimate the value of cross-cultural exchanges.
Absolutely, and you can talk about it in the abstract, but being there matters.
Being there.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, and a raw experience changes
Being there
lives.
makes all the difference, I think.
I think I'm proof of that. I try to tell my students, if you do nothing in your undergraduate experience, if you can make it happen, study abroad, because it makes you think about your own self, your own country, your own history in a very different way. It's a
True
powerful
enough.
experience.
I mean, look at the life as well as career trajectory it's taken you on. Yeah.
That's right. One never knows when you travel where you'll end up. That's just
Exactly.
true.
All right. Now, moving on. Tell me what's crucial about the study of religions, in particular Islam, for the global-minded university student out there.
Yes.
So you might have parents who are watching this and who are thinking, all right, so why study Islam specifically? Especially, let's say, even in Malaysia, where we've got, a predominantly Muslim population. What would your answer be to that?
Well, whatever globalization is, and that's another 2-hour program.
Oh, yes.
It's about shrinking space. It's about speed. It's about interactions that weren't possible in the pre-modern world, an acceleration of exchange. And religion is central to the human experience, to human identity. It's been around as long as recorded history. And despite predictions after the European Enlightenment that religion somehow wasn't going to be necessary, the great lesson of the 20th century and now 21st century is religion is here to stay. We're also reminded every day that it's very difficult to separate religion from culture and from politics. That's not
right.
unique to Islam. Every religious
Oh,
tradition,
absolutely.
these forces, these ideas, these currents, these relationships, these institutions spill over between realms of human experience. So religion matters. It matters tremendously. And religious literacy, I think, is more important today than ever before in an interconnected world, especially in a place like America, where we're a nation of immigrants, diverse religious backgrounds.
Oh, that's right. A melting pot of every culture imaginable.
Absolutely. And much the same is true in Malaysia in,
Yes,
in
indeed.
different ways.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Both the challenge and the possibilities of intracommunal cooperation and collaboration require education.
That's
and
right.
religious literacy and understanding, not only a deeper understanding of your own faith, whatever it might be, but the faith of others is critically important in the modern world, more so than ever before, I would argue.
That's right. And I think what we have actually seen, like, for example, even in the aftermath of something as shocking as the Charlie Hebdo attacks,
That's right.
what really helps people overcome it is the dialogue that they have about it.
But that's not easy to do.
Yes, exactly.
And, information is not knowledge. I think one of the markers of the globalized world is the acceleration, the intensification of noise.
Information is not knowledge. I like that.
One can look at 1,000 news broadcasts and
That's
1,000
right.
different blogs, but if you don't have the capacity to analyze and to think, then it's just noise.
Exactly.
So one of the great things about the global world is the increasing access to information, but we still have to have the skills to think through it, to form our own opinions, to be able to understand the biases of particular reporters, particular news agencies, and to connect dots. And I would argue that a real education, means a breadth, an ability to think broadly and to interact with many different kinds of people, many different kinds of media resources, but to be grounded in a way that allows you to think critically and
That's
creatively about those many voices.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is something that I have heard time and time again from any academic that I've spoken to,
Right.
that there is a lot of, as much media as we have, there's also a lot of ignorance associated with how we consume it
Right.
in general.
Well, we could have a long conversation about media and media theories, but
Yes,
it's really important to develop those sort of thinking skills, and it doesn't just happen naturally. Students, and if I'm anything, I'm a teacher. Students require a critical apparatus to be able to think through those kinds of questions.
That's right. All right. So now basically, let's talk about how in the media these days, something that could be seen as being skewed against Islam, for example, the Peshawar school bombings. I mean, those were, I would say, barely covered in the media at all.
Absolutely.
So how would you relate that and explain to our viewers that that is actually media bias?
Yes. I mean, if you're getting all of your knowledge about the world through a television screen or a single blog, I think you're in trouble. The media, the famous phrase, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
By nature, the media chases dramatic stories. And it should. These are important world events. But too often what happens in 30-second sound bites is there's not time for analysis, there's not time for contexts. So one can hear about particular tragedies and dramas, but if we never have time to think through the why, we haven't gotten very far. And many of the world leading media resources, given the current realities and climates, are Western based. Their coverage, I would argue, is driven by Western concerns. And so a great deal of coverage surrounds the Charlie Hebdo experiences, but on the same day there are attacks in Yemen, the week proceeding in Peshawar, Pakistan, the Boko Haram attacks, and relative silence in the Western media. It just becomes a flat, one-dimensional picture of fire and burning and chaos with no context. Now, maybe I'm proving this fact today, but another problem I would argue is that academics make bad media commentators in some ways, because we like complexity, we like context, and we don't fit well into 30-second sound bites. So one of the things that saddens me is we seem to have learned in the United States relatively little in the years since 9/11. And part of the answer to that sort of social ignorance, I would argue, is that we have the same sort of talking head echo chamber of experts who emerge to tell the public
in the post
9/11
era
every time, and that doesn't include academics. We've been sort of outsourced to think tanks and other government organizations in some ways.
I see. All right, so what we'll do is we'll cut to a commercial, and once we're back we'll continue discussing with Professor Rosenau about his perspectives about media-driven narrators, especially against Islam. Stay with us.
Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Sama-sama.
Satu bangsa, satu Malaysia. Menongkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, and in the studios with us is Professor Robert Rosenau from Lehigh University in America. All right, so we were talking about, Professor, that the global community, how did we actually reach this sort of media feeding frenzy that is, for the most part, it appears to be rather anti-Islamic in nature? What do you think are the roots of it? I mean, I don't mind if we actually discuss it a little bit from a slightly historical perspective even.
Sure. Well, it's tough to project the current media landscape back very far, I would argue. I mean, there have been conflicts and difficulties and social situations for 1,000 years, but we weren't blogging, we weren't tweeting about them or blogging about them.
There you go.
But I think we've just seen an unprecedented series of changes and upheavals in parts of the Muslim world. And when I say Muslim world, I always mean it in quotes. That word suggests there's somehow a world for Muslims and then, our world.
Yes, let's clarify that first.
Yeah, it's a problematic statement. I use it as a shorthand because even in the United States, we have a large and growing Muslim community. So Muslims are throughout the world. But what I'm suggesting is the last decade post 9/11, we've seen the Arab Spring, we've seen the rise of jihadi movements, we've seen a general sort of earthquake in large parts of especially the Middle East, and that has gotten an awful lot of media coverage. And media, of course, was critically important in the Arab Spring as a liberating force for people pushing back against the Mubarak
people putting up their
government.
comments and tweeting about it, Facebooking it.
Yes. So I think that the reality of the barrage, as you put it, is simply a matter of the current political and social landscape we find ourselves in the early 21st century, and the changing media landscape, the intensification of media. What's strange about it, in my mind, is that we have more and more and more media resources, but the actual number of people speaking, the actual number of the flows of information seem to be narrowing in a particular way. I do think that there's hope here. I encourage my students in my classes, for example, to always seek alternative media sources and to have multiple voices, triangulate between different multiple voices. If you're receiving any of your information from a single source, you're getting one particular perspective.
Let's say if you're even watching Al Jazeera, for example, they do have a stated bias, but at the same time you need to balance it perhaps with other media too.
Well, and this is from my perspective, an encouraging change that Al Jazeera is very much present now in the United States and gives a very important alternative perspective on conflict, especially in the Middle East, that Americans have not had easy access to before. Now it's on your mainstream cable networks in the United States. It's an important change, and I think that's an important voice to add to the debate.
Right, to have out there.
Absolutely.
That's
critically
right.
important.
Okay, now as we were talking a little bit about, Charlie Hebdo. So of course I would say the one distinct voice of dissent which has come out from the parties which feel that, of course, it's a gross violation of humanity to murder, to mass murder. Absolutely. But that aside, stepping apart from it, the naysayers, those who say that, well, why did it happen at all? After all, it's free speech and no one ought to be censured for that. What sort of a perspective can we add to this? Is there something really like free speech?
Well, here again, history is important, and one of the things we're trying to do at Lehigh University in all our Islam courses is demand from our students a historical perspective. Again, it takes work.
Coax that out.
Exactly. Again, the daily headlines aren't going to be sufficient for resources. But if students think historically, we find that in moments of conflict in history between Christians and Muslims, as far back as the Crusades, there have been polemical writings, even polemical cartoons, sides taking sides through media of the time. This has gotten amplified and intensified again in the 20th and 21st centuries. We can draw a straight line from the satanic verses in the Salman Rushdie affair to what's happened, I think, in France. And look, in my mind, free speech is a critical dimension of the democratic experience and process. A free and open media is crucial for critical thinking and an informed citizenship. But democracy provides rights, unprecedented human rights and responsibilities. And here's my comment about Charlie Hebdo, is they had a history, if you know it, of political satire. Satire is a very important rhetorical device to poke fun of and to cut down to size political power. It's important and has had a wonderful history, especially in France, as a powerful rhetorical teaching device. But in the context of and here again the word context, in the context of current France, where the power dynamics are such that the Muslims, most of whom are children of the colonial experience, living in the banlieue, now we're talking second and third generation of mostly Algerians who are technically French citizens but don't share many of the rights of other French citizens, a deep sense of alienation and anger. That is a marginalized community. And to use satire to attack the powerless is, in my mind, irresponsible.
And not only that, it completely defeats the purpose of satire itself, which was originally to empower the oppressed.
That's exactly
to give
right.
a voice.
That's right. So we flipped that dynamic, and the Charlie Hebdo had a history of attacking religion writ large, any religious community. We can point to political cartoons about Judaism and Christianity, but if you look at the full picture, they've had a particular attack against Muslims and the images of the Prophet Muhammad, and have been putting fingers in raw wounds. I mean, these are not political cartoons meant to edify and enlighten. They're bombs. It's incendiary. And so I'm all for the rights of the democratic process, including the right to free speech.
Absolutely.
But with rights come responsibility, and the press has a particular responsibility. It has to take responsibility for the predictable response.
The predictable response. There you go. And I think that is key to understanding actually what happened.
That's right. And there's a long history of this. I'm happy to say that the Muslim American experience is, we're in a very different landscape in America, and much has to do with the colonial history in Europe and the difficulties of assimilation in a post-colonial world. Our immigrants, our Muslims in America are indigenous African Americans converts. They are immigrants from the Middle East, from South and Southeast Asia, from all over the world, actually.
Yes.
We have a mosque in the Lehigh Valley, just down the street from Lehigh University. Two mosques, actually, one Shia and one Sunni. They get along quite well. They cooperate. They helped each other build their masjids.
Right.
And if you stand outside those mosques on a Friday after the khutbah and the noon prayer and watch the members of those groups coming out of the masjids, you're seeing the diversity of the global ummah. And these are mostly immigrants, and research has shown that Muslim Americans are quite well integrated into society, voting, participating in the democratic experience, and proud to be an American. There's no dissonance between an American identity and a Muslim identity.
That's right.
And this is also in a time when they have, had difficult times themselves post 9/11. There have been evidence of surveillance, of police incursions into mosques, but to their great credit, the American Muslim community has remained open, has remained public and accessible, and has stood up and spoken out against the horrors and atrocities that they reject in the name of their own religion.
So by and large, I think we all would hope that this sort of positive dialogue would spread worldwide, really. Absolutely. I hope so too. So it's been our pleasure here at Bernama to have you in the studios today, Ma. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.
It's been very informative, and we hope that you've learned as much as we have here at Bernama today about the media narratives against Islam and as well as for Islam. And here's to a wonderful day ahead for all of you out there. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.